Hi, my name is Jane Gabbard. I'm your host for the Alpha Mom Book Club, and I'm very thrilled to introduce Dr. Harvey Karp.
Thank you,
He's with
Jane.
us today, and we're going to talk about the happiest baby on the block. And I want to mention that Dr. Karp is the assistant professor of pediatrics at the UCLA School of Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Karp. The Happiest Baby on the Block DVD, which is amazing. You'll see all of your wonderful techniques in action, and the book. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jane.
What I'd like to start out with is you say babies, when they're calm babies become serene, and serene babies sleep better.
Right. In other words, that these techniques are not just for parents who have fussy babies.
Right.
These techniques help all parents with their babies. What I like to teach my patients is that there are two main jobs when you become a new parent. One is to feed your baby successfully. The second is to calm your baby when your baby's fussy. If you can do those two things, everyone's going around giving each other high fives and feeling good about themselves.
Parent.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you fail at either one of those, you feel devastated. You feel miserable. Now, there's a lot of help and support for people who are feeding their babies. There are breastfeeding support groups and lactation consultants and books and magazines. But there's very, very little about how to do the second half of the job, which is calming crying babies. And that's really what my book and DVD is all about.
Right.
The interesting thing, or the curious thing about these techniques, is that they're a little counterintuitive. And that's
what do you mean by that?
Well, they don't feel exactly the way you think you're supposed to be handling a baby. For example, the wrapping is much snugger than you think you should do it. The shushing that you do is louder. It almost sounds a little bit rude. So the techniques that actually work to calm the babies down don't feel natural to people in our culture. We've forgotten them in our culture. They're natural in other cultures. And so it helps for a parent to actually see them being done so that they get the idea of exactly what they're supposed to do.
Right, and I'm going to jump around here a little bit because the 5 S's that you talk about a lot in your book, you just mentioned a couple of them, the swaddling and the shushing, is to help calm the crying.
Right.
And I have a question: how much crying is okay for a baby and natural, and when are we to start worrying and seeking out?
You know, parents get so confused about this because people say let the baby cry, or it's okay, the babies have to blow off steam or stuff like that. That's all nonsense. The only reason babies have the ability to cry is to get our attention. Some babies are like telephones. They're ringing to bring us you can't tell why the telephone's ringing. You don't know if it's a friend or a wrong number. All you know is the telephone's getting your attention. Some babies are like that. Some babies are like smoke alarms. I mean, they make a big noise. It sounds like a disaster. But you know when a smoke alarm goes off, sometimes you just burn some toast. You can't tell from the sound of the alarm how serious the problem is. It just is to get your attention. So when your baby is crying, especially in the first 3 or 4 months of life, you're never supposed to just let the baby cry. Don't worry about spoiling. Spoiling's an issue later on in life.
Right.
In the first 3 or 4 months, it's all for free. Go to your baby, because then the baby learns to trust you. The baby learns that they live in a safe world where everything's going to be taken care of for them.
I mean, isn't that a pretty primal cry? Because, you know, if the mother wandered off in the forest too far, that baby would be crying.
Sure, they need
to say, come find me.
Sure, they need to be able to get your attention.
Right.
It's kind of amazing when you think that this little 7-pound baby can get you, running out of a nice warm bed on a cold night.
Exactly.
It's a pretty powerful signal. Another thing that parents get really confused about is this idea about stomach pain or gas or overeating. Because parents have been taught for years and years that babies cry because they have indigestion. The word colic even comes from the same word as the word colon, meaning intestines.
That was so interesting, from the Greek word.
Right.
Right.
For intestine.
Right.
It turns out that very rarely are babies crying because they have real intestinal pain. Hey, look, what do we tell parents? We say, turn on a hairdryer or go for a car ride and the baby will calm down. Well, do hair dryers and car rides stop bad abdominal pain?
Right.
when you stop at a red light, the baby starts crying again. Do red lights make bad pain increase? It turns out that it has very, very little to do with intestinal pain. Cultures around the world where babies don't cry at all often feed the babies 50 to 100 times a day. Parents today worry, oh, I gave my baby a little bit too much to eat. That's not what causes crying. Right. Now, one thing that does confuse parents is there's a reflex that all babies have, which is when the stomach fills with food, the intestine starts to move. It's like the stomach is giving a message to the lower intestine. There's more food coming. Move
ready.
Out the poop.
Right.
And so when babies feed, they oftentimes poop right at the same time. Most babies don't even know when that reflex is happening. We have the reflex too. Most of us don't know when it's happening.
Right.
But some babies are so sensitive to that reflex that they act like you're sticking a knife in them. I mean, they start to eat, and 10 minutes into them feeding, they go, I don't like that feeling. And today, parents are told if your baby cries in the middle of the feeding, it's gas or it's acid reflux or something like that. And usually all it is this reflex, this gastrocolic reflex that's going on, that's making that, and the baby's overly sensitive to it. Just like your baby may be overly sensitive to the telephone ring, and that could start your baby from crying.
Right, because that young baby's just, that intestinal tract is just getting started learning how to operate. Right, so if it does react that way so quickly when it eats, we immediately think,
it's pain.
I'm feeding it the wrong thing.
Right.
There's something in my breast milk I shouldn't have eaten broccoli, or
right.
and we immediately think it's something we're doing.
And that can be the case in a tiny percentage of babies. In 99% of babies, if they're fussing, it's because they need help turning on what I call their calming reflex. Mm-hmm. It turns out that all babies are born with lots of reflexes. Sucking, you don't have to teach your baby how to suck. You don't have to teach your baby how to cry. You don't have to teach your baby how to swallow. Those are all built-in reflexes. And it turns out, what I discovered is that all babies are also born with a calming reflex that is virtually an off switch for crying. Reflexes are these automatic behaviors we have. For example, your knee reflex. If I hit your knee, your foot goes out.
Boing, right.
I could do it 100 times in a row. But I have to do it exactly right. If I hit your knee and I'm off by half an inch, nothing happens. Mm-hmm. If I hit your knee in the right place but I do it too softly, nothing happens. You have to do it exactly right. And then you can do it 100 times in a row. It turns out with calming babies, you have to do some things that imitate their life inside the uterus. The experiences they have in the uterus flip the switch and can take a baby from screaming to calm in minutes, sometimes even in seconds when you do it right.